Purpose, pocket, place, picks, and protection. These are the 5 Ps every beginner Pokemon collector needs to know. I've been collecting Pokemon cards seriously for the past 6 years and making videos about this hobby for 3. And this is the guide I wish someone had given me when I started. And by the end of the video, you'll have a complete framework for every collecting decision you'll ever make, whether you have $20 to spend or $2,000. All right, so let's get into it. The first P is purpose, and it is the most important one because every other P in this framework flows from that answer. The question is simple. Are you collecting because you love it, the nostalgia, the community, the thrill of the pool, or are you treating this as a financial system, buying with resale or long-term appreciation in mind? Most people sit somewhere between the two, and that's fine, but you need to know which end you lean towards before you spend a single dollar, because the right strategy for a passion collector is completely wrong for a profit collector. I learned this the hard way. I pulled my first ever Charizard, my first one, from my very first serious time collecting, and I sold it. 90 bucks. It felt like the right call at the time. I needed the cash, someone made an offer, and I took it. That card is worth over $1,000 today. But here's the thing, the regret isn't really about the money, it's that it was the first Charizard I ever pulled. And I sold it because I had no framework. I didn't know what I was collecting for, so nothing felt worth keeping. I had no filter for what mattered and what didn't. If I'd been a more kind of profit collector, I might have held it and watched the market. If I'd been a passion collector, I probably never would have sold it at all. But without a clear purpose, I was just reacting. And reactive decisions in this hobby are almost always ones that you end up regretting. So before you buy a single card, just write out one sentence. I'm collecting Pokemon cards because, and then enter your purpose. That's your purpose. Everything else comes back to this. I've got 4 more Ps to walk you through: pocket, place, picks, and protection. But after 6 years of collecting and watching other collectors on YouTube, the ones who thrive and the ones who burn out, I've noticed a pattern. The collectors who build something they're genuinely proud of all have one thing in common, and it's not knowledge and it's not budget. Stay with me and we will get there. Okay, so the second P is pocket. And this isn't just about setting a budget, it's about deciding where the money comes from and what the rules are. A budget tells you how much, but your rule tells you how. I started this hobby with 20 bucks. That was it. $20 I raised selling random junk from around my house on Facebook Marketplace. And you could do that too. From that point, I made one rule. I only ever spend what I make in this hobby. Whatever I sell generates the float for the next thing. I don't touch house money, I don't touch living expenses. The hobby funds itself or it waits. 6 years later, that approach has grown into a collection well worth into the 5 figures, not because of luck, not because of one massive full pool, but because of one rule applied consistently over time. Now, you don't have to do it the way that I do. If you're a passion collector, a fixed monthly fun money limit is completely valid. Decide an amount that doesn't affect anything in your life, and when it's gone until the next month. The method isn't what matters. What matters is that you have a rule written down next to your purpose centers before you open your wallet for the first time. The third P is place, and this is where your purpose answer starts doing some real work. There are 4 places to buy in this hobby, and each one serves a different purpose. The first is your local game store or LGS, and you can use Google to find out where one is near you. These aren't just shops, they're hubs of knowledge and community. You get advice in person, you'll meet fellow collectors, and you'll be able to trade cards. You'll sometimes pay a little more than you would elsewhere, but you're not just buying a card, you're buying the vibe and the culture around it. For a passion collector, that is absolutely worth it. The second is Pokemon card Facebook groups in your area. Think of these as like local game stores, but virtual. They're where collectors in your city and your region sell, trade, and talk about the hobby. You'll learn about upcoming products and get opinions on whether or not a deal is worth it, and often find cards at a better price than retail. For a new collector, joining one of these groups is one of the smartest free moves that you can make. The third is eBay. It's convenient, the selection is huge, and winning an auction can save you real money, especially on singles. The downside is there's no one to tell you whether the deal is actually worthwhile. You need to do your own research before you buy. Check out your sold listings, not just asking prices, and that's where you'll see how things actually sell. The fourth is big box retailers like Kmart, Target, EB Games or GameStop. These are reliable, straightforward sources for buying current product at retail price. No frills, no community, but a solid option when you just want to pick something up without overthinking it. Neither of these options is better than the other. Your purpose will tell you which one to lean towards. And here's something I figured out a few years in that genuinely changed my collection's trajectory. Price gaps do exist between different markets. Cards that are common and cheap in the US market can be harder to find and priced higher here in Australia. And once I worked that out, I started buying where the price was lower and selling locally at the going rate here. The margin funded a significant chunk of what I've built over the years. So I'm not saying to do what I did, I'm just saying once you know the market well enough, you start seeing things other collectors miss. And that knowledge builds over time, but it does start with getting to know one local game store, understanding what things cost locally, and then using that as your baseline for everything else in your collecting. The fourth P is picks. And for beginners, one piece of advice covers most of it. If you're new to this hobby, buy what's new. Current sets are forgiving. Prices are transparent, the market is active, and you can genuinely enjoy collecting while you're still learning how everything works. In terms of vintage cards, base set, first editions, early holos, graded slabs, these things require a level of knowledge that takes time to develop. Without it, you will overpay. It's almost certain. I've watched this happen over and over. A new collector falls in love with the idea of vintage, finds something online that looks like it's the right price, that seems reasonable, and pays hundreds for a card that's probably not worth it in that condition. So start where the learning curve is lowest. As your knowledge deepens and your purpose gets clearer, the rest kind of opens up naturally. In terms of format, there are 3 ways to buy in this hobby. Packs really are for fun. Treat them as entertainment, set a hard limit, and enjoy them for the experience of opening, not as a strategy for building a collection. Singles are for when you know exactly what you want. Instead of buying pack after pack, chasing one card, you can buy that card directly. Check TCG Player first, search up the card and look at the recent sold prices. Know the number before you spend anything. And then there's sealed products, so unopened booster boxes and collection boxes. These kind of sit in the middle. It's enjoyable to open eventually, and because print runs are finite, once a set goes out of production, sealed product tends to hold or grow in value over time. The format you lean towards comes back again to purpose. Fun and experience, then go for packs and singles. Building long-term value, sealed product and targeted singles bought at the right price. And one more thing on picks, and this will save you money immediately. When a new set drops, scalpers kind of try to buy up popular products and relist them at inflated prices. Booster bundles are especially targeted because they're usually the cheapest pack to dollar ratio. So demand spikes and scalpers move fast. And my advice here is don't pay over retail on a brand new set. It's okay to miss a release. Another set is always coming, and prices on new products almost always settle back down after a couple of weeks. If you want to secure something at retail, learn to pre-order. Most stores do have pre-orders before a set releases. That is the cleanest way to get what you want at the right price without competing with scalpers on launch day. The 5th P is protection. And I'll say this as plainly as I can. Real collectors take real care from the very first pull. Every card you own actually has an invisible price tag on it. You didn't write it. It was written by every surface that card has touched, every hand that's handled it, every pocket it's been shoved into loose, and every box it's been thrown into without a sleeve. You don't get to set that price tag. You can only protect it or watch it go down. In terms of grading companies, PSA, Beckett, CGC, they score cards on exactly this fact. A card that comes out of a pack and goes into a sleeve holds its condition. The same card handled carelessly or stored in direct sunlight or in heat, it always loses value in ways you won't even notice until someone knowledgeable looks closely. A single corner ding can drop a PSA grade by a few points. On a card worth $200,000, that difference can cost you hundreds or more. Gone because of one moment of not caring. The minimum standard is pretty simple. Penny sleeve the moment you pull it, then pop it into a hard top loader or a side loading binder page. Keep them flat and out of sunlight and away from heat and moisture. And a word on binders specifically, regular binders are fine for lower value cards, but if you're storing anything worth real money, invest in a top loader binder. This is a binder where each card sits in the top loader and then into a soft pocket. Standard binder pages flex when you flip through them, and over time, or in one careless moment when flicking through with your friends, your cards can get damaged or bent on edges. A top loader binder removes that risk entirely. It costs more up front, but it is worth it. The setup costs almost nothing to start and scales as your collection grows. And it is the single habit that separates collectors who build something lasting from those who look back and wish they'd been more careful. A quick note on why I care about this before I get to the last part. 6 years ago, I got back into this hobby as an adult and immediately started making expensive, avoidable mistakes. 3 years ago, I started this channel because I kept looking for content that laid things out clearly, without hype, without the unboxing theater, and I couldn't find it, so I made it myself. Everything in the 5P framework comes from that. Not from theory, but from decisions I've made, mistakes I've paid for, and patterns I've watched play out across hundreds of collectors over 3 years of making these videos. The collectors who thrive in this hobby, the ones who build collections they're genuinely proud of, who don't burn out in collecting, who aren't constantly chasing the next thing, they all have one thing in common. They collect on purpose. That phrase means two things at once, and I mean both of them. They have a clear purpose they've answered. They know exactly why they're in this hobby. They have a filter and they use it. And they make deliberate choices. They're not reactive. They don't just buy because a new set dropped, because a video made something look exciting, or because someone else's pull created FOMO. They go back to that one sentence, I'm collecting because. And they ask, does this fit? If it doesn't fit, they don't buy it, even when it's tempting, especially when it's tempting. The collectors who burn out almost always tell the same story. They started reacting instead of deciding, and the hobby started feeling like a drain, emotionally and financially, and it stopped feeling like something they'd chosen and started feeling like something that was happening to them. And eventually it stopped feeling worth it. And I've been there. Early on, before I had any of this framework, I'd buy reactively, then feel hollow afterwards, not because the cards were bad, but because I couldn't connect the purchase back to anything I actually wanted. It was noise, it was excitement, it wasn't good. The 5P framework isn't a checklist you run it through once. It's a filter you come back to every time you're about to open your wallet, and it always works because it always starts with why. So the whole framework, one more time. Purpose, write one sentence about why you're collecting. Pocket, pick one spending rule and write it down next to that sentence. Place, find a local game store and get to know it before you go online. Picks, buy current sets first and then check online how much they cost with every purchase. And protection, sleeve every important card. 5 decisions in that order every time. Everything else is just an upgrade, not a requirement. Because here's the thing, every good decision I've made in 6 years of collecting traces back to having a clear answer to that question. Then once you know that, check this video out to see whether or not you should be buying this upcoming set. I'll see you there.